it's not just stick figures. So this is about using your whiteboard for your read-write learners, and it's engaging your athletes. So there's not many ways that you can engage your read-write learners in a CrossFit class. Like, naturally, you've got the monitors on the machines, but I've got a lot of information on using the machines and workouts, how we can coach them on a different webinar. So on this one, we're going to stick to how to use your whiteboard, essentially. And it's not just stick figures, all right? So it's not just about drawing people and positions of movements. So engaging your athletes, let's get into it. Let's watch this to start. How are your stick figures? Did you know that read-write learners might find it difficult to process the auditory or the visual style coaching? So what can you give these athletes to help them understand and improve their performance? Have you ever used your whiteboard for anything other than just your brief? Try this next time you're coaching the push jerk. You can see in the dip and the drive, the jerk, the torso angle is vertical, but in the catch, you want to get that torso tipped over with the hips back and the knees bent. Okay, so this is a very, very simple example of how you might use the whiteboard in your class of a push jerk. All right, so yeah, try this out next time you're coaching the push jerk, showing the catch position, showing the torso angle in the dip and the drive, and then showing the torso position in the catch being tipped over with knees bent. You can also bring in the kinesthetic learners at the whiteboard here by saying, everyone do a dip, just like the picture, vertical, yeah, check everybody. And now drive, stay vertical, and then you're going to catch and you're going to feel the torso tilts. And then you've used the read, write, and the kinesthetic at the whiteboard. You could obviously give a visual demo there as well, which you'll get 3 people. You can do exactly what the whiteboard is doing. And then obviously talking about it is the 4. So there you've got everybody with that little whiteboard speech about the different torso angle and the catch position. And then you can go out to the barbells and start practicing the work. All right, you can obviously cue them on the vertical dip first, vertical drive, and then it's the torso tilt and the catch. All right, so read-write teaching. In this session, it's how to use your whiteboard. So how to use your whiteboard better or not in your classes. Why you should use your whiteboard, and then the homework that's going to be associated with this session. All right, so how to use your whiteboard. There's 7 main ways, right? We've got use it for your warm-ups. So I've ignored whiteboard brief and I've ignored the workout, right? So that'd be 8, obviously, but we do that. I assume we all do that anyway. So the second one, well, the first one today is going to be warm-ups. So I know through my experience, a lot of coaches just tell their athletes what to do for the warm-up, and then others write it on the workout on the whiteboard every day. So if you don't generally write your whiteboard on write your warm-up on the whiteboard, then try it. So just write your whiteboard, write your warm-up up on your whiteboard, and you'll notice that your athletes will engage a little bit better and they'll know exactly what they're doing. And you've probably done a warm-up where people are looking around at everybody else in the room, and it's not that they weren't listening, it's just they couldn't take in the auditory learning, and you think it's because they weren't listening to you, but it's probably not. So if you were to say it and you had it on the whiteboard as well, them athletes will probably know what to do. And if they don't, you'll see them looking at the whiteboard like, I always thought they didn't listen to me, but now I know they just need to see it. All right. So yeah, try put your warm-ups on the whiteboard. Sorry, I'm getting into too much detail here. This is supposed to be just a run through. So warm-ups, educational teaching. So you can use it for educational teaching with technique, form, mechanics. So that's like Carl Eagleman and the whiteboard daily. So that type of stuff, and a little bit like I go into a little bit more detail there. Correcting faults, so you can use it in a class environment, kind of on a whim. It's like you're seeing multiple faults, and you can get over to the whiteboard. Workout intensity, mindset, and stimulus. So you can use the whiteboard for that. Quotes, not a big favorite of mine. Not that I'm not a lover of quotes, they don't hit home for me, and it's like a bias of mine. If they don't help me, I don't really use them. There are some quotes that I would generally use as more motivational rather than anything. Well, that's quotes, aren't they? They're kind of motivational, but I'd use them in a sense of inspiring people and motivating them just before the workout starts. And I'd use them, as I say, I wouldn't generally write them on the whiteboard unless it was really important and I built the whole class around it. Labels and focus points. So I am huge, absolutely huge on labels and focus points. We've already done 2 sessions on it up to now, and there's hardly a class goes by where I don't have a label, and there's definitely never a class that goes by without focus points. And then scaling options. So write your scaling options on the whiteboard. just have them there for people. You can write them up before the workout starts, before your class starts, and you can have your warm up on one side, the workout in the middle, and then the scaling options on the opposite side, so that people are always knowing and they can just see it and it's always there. All right. So which have you never used before? So which ones of these have you never used before? Warm-ups, educational teaching, correcting falls, workout intensity, mindset, stimulus, quotes, labels, focus points, scaling options. So I want you to post your answer to the comments on the Facebook post of where this video is. So just at the end of the video, you can just write it in. But I also want you to say, have you ever used your whiteboard for anything that's not mentioned? So I would love to hear more. And there's like, this is what I've used it for in the past. This is what I've known to being used it for. I know what other coaches use it for. But I'd love to hear if anybody else uses their whiteboard for any other reason in their class. Okay, so stick that in the comments as well. So there's two questions. Which have you never used before? And have you used your whiteboard for anything that not mentioned? Post it on the Facebook comments. All right, so let's get into here now. Read, write, why? So why would you want to use your read, write? So engage those that respond better to writing or drawing. So we've been through this before. We know it's important that we try to coach for every style of learning. And it just helps. It just helps other people. It helps everybody. So like talking helps, visual demos help, all that kinesthetic stuff helps. But having it written on the whiteboard, it just allows people just to go back and have a little quick check, add something different to class. So if you are always coaching a class, here's your whiteboard brief, and then you're just talking, demo, all day, every day, all of a sudden you say, come over to the whiteboard. That's going to be new. That's going to be different. All right. It adds a new perspective. So for you, it can depending on what you're covering, let's say it's educational, you can add a new perspective through education on a whiteboard, and it just kind of engages them a lot more and makes it more interesting. It also allows variance in your teaching. So we talked about varying your teaching styles all the time, and then bringing them to the whiteboard definitely varies that. Okay, but if you use it every day, it becomes boring. So we need to vary it with other styles. So I wouldn't say, okay, let's use your whiteboard brief, a workout brief, warm up, and scaling options are probably three things you should always have in your whiteboard, in my opinion, if there's scaling options necessary. You don't need to say scale with a lighter barbell. That's not necessarily. I'm thinking more style of gymnastics, where the progressions aren't as easy for people to understand, and the progressions might not be the same every single day. So the scaling options today are for, let's say, for pull-ups. Today is ring rows, jumping pull-ups, and pull-ups. And then another day it could be banded pull-ups and pull-ups. You know what I mean? So it doesn't have to be the same every single day. And if you put the scaling options there, it makes it a little bit easier for people. But you don't want to be calling people over to your whiteboard every single day, because they're just going to be like, oh, back to the whiteboard again. It becomes monotonous. It becomes a little bit like, oh, I'm sick of seeing these whiteboards. I don't want to stand around and listen to him talk for another 5 minutes. This is boring. You know what I mean? For some people, it can get like that. So if it's once a week, if it's twice a week, or every third or fourth time you coach, then it becomes a little bit like, oh, what's going to say today? And make sure it's trying to kind of different. And that's what we've got, the 7 different versions, 7 different variations there. If we take out the 2 for the warm up and the scaling, you got 5 other variations that we can choose to vary it up, keep it interesting so that people aren't getting bored. All right, so your warm-ups, keep your warm-ups simple. So we don't need to overcomplicate it. We don't need to be doing random stuff that's really, really hard to complicate, and then they have to go over and check the whiteboard. Try and keep it as simple as you can, but have it written on the whiteboard for people who can just reference it back and check it. You don't need to talk through your warm-up like a whiteboard brief, like a workout brief. You could do your workout brief, say, here's your scaling options, quick run through. Here's your warm-up, quick run through. We're going to get into it now. And then you get them out onto the floor, and then you talk them through the warm-up, but it's there on the whiteboard if they need to go and check it. They'll also get used to the fact that the workout is on the warm-up is on the whiteboard every single day. And they'll know that they can just check back in with it. And then you'll after a few weeks of doing this, you'll be like, there's your warm-up, we're going to go through it now. You don't actually need to talk through it at all unless it requires it. So if you're using a new movement, a new structure, a different format, well, then you can talk through it a little bit more detail. But if it's really, really simple, let's say it's Tabata and it's air squats and I don't know, air squats and push-ups. You're not going to do that in a warm-up. But imagine it was Tabata, air squats, push-ups. That's an easy one. You don't have to explain much. We're doing Tabata, air squats, push-ups. Let's go. Have it on the right board just for people to know to check back. Okay. Read, write, teaching. So this is where you can get really educational with your teaching. And I think I mentioned here, it's education, teaching, technique, form, and mechanics. Okay. So you see, these are like very whiteboard daily-esque with the stick figures and a little bit more detail, right? So it's if you want to go deeper on technical points in the class. So I'll explain what I use these ones for. So the first one here I actually used for ankle flexion in a front squat. And I was mentioning, you see the angle of the ankle and the shin in the left hand smiley face. Sorry, I'll just get my cursor up on screen here so you can see it. So this guy here, he's happy because he has good ankle flexion and his knees going forward, his shin angle is forward, and allows him to get a little bit deeper in the squat and keep his torso upright. Whereas this guy has nearly a vertical shin, so he has poor ankle flexion, or not that he has poor ankle flexion, he just hasn't used it. He or she hasn't used the ankle flexion that they have, so the knee is up. That means they aren't getting as much depth and the torso is more tipped over, and this guy is very sad because it's going to be harder to hold the barbell in the front squat or a squat clean. All right, so I used this image to talk about ankle flexion, and then I went into some exercises for trying to mobilize or free up the ankle a little bit more. Then I brought in some activation exercise to try and use the tibialis anterior, the muscle on the front of the shin, to pull the knee forward, also to pull the hips forward from the hip flexors. So I went deep on this one, where I spent probably about 20 minutes on ankles and knee, ankle flexion, knee, hip flexion, knee flexion, to try and sit deeper and get more upright in the torso. So this little picture, it took me 2 or 3 minutes to explain it, and then spend about 20 minutes on actual work for it. And that was my class. There was no, like, in my warm-up, I probably covered, let's go with feet flat in the squat, shoulder width. I talked about knees tracking toes. I probably talked about neutral spine. So I covered the basics in the warm-up, so then I can get into 20 minutes of technical teaching here with this type of stuff. The second one again, so this was for a squat clean actually. I remember this is a squat clean. This was for a front squat. So I was balanced about the frontal plane. And I showed this picture of this guy standing tall, the barbell on his shoulder here, straight line down, the barbell is over the midfoot. And when we hit the bottom of the squat, we want the barbell still over the midfoot. And that's the balance about the frontal plane. If somebody tips over like this guy, you'd notice that there was a barbell here. The bar would be out in front of his toes, so he wouldn't be balanced about his frontal plane. So I talked about, this is a totally separate day to this one here, but I talked about then is we're trying to make sure that we didn't tip forward too much, that we tried to maintain a neutral spine while forcing ourselves more upright. Then I followed that up, so I spent a few minutes talking here, and then followed that up with some air squats, some barbell squats, and then there's a partner drill with 2 pipes either side of the barbell, and the person squatting had to try and stay inside the guardrail, so inside the pipes as they squatted up and down. And the 2 pipes were did like operation. If you ever played operation, where you're trying to get the thing around and it hit the sides, so I had the person on the side, and if the partner hit the pipes, it was like bzzz, so they got buzzed out. So I was just trying to force them to stay more upright. What the big coaching point there was trying to engage your back muscles. So it was like, maintain a neutral spine, but engage your back muscles to keep yourself more upright, because we can get lazy and just fold over. And everyone was like, oh, I really felt the muscles activate there that I've never felt before. And then that was the thing I went after for the whole workout. It was like, balance about the frontal plane, keep the bar over your midfoot, use your back muscles to keep yourself more upright, engage your upper back, that kind of stuff. So it would allow me to coach something a little bit more interesting. So you see, the educational teaching just takes it away from the basic points performance, where you can get deeper on this stuff. Next one, midline stabilization, is our ability to stay rigid. So this was on a deadlift day, and I wanted them, it was a heavy deadlift day, and the key was to work as heavy as possible within the constraints of midline stabilization. So I wanted people to stay rigid. As soon as they felt a little bit of breakdown, that was it. They stopped moving and took the weight off. So it was really important that I spent a few minutes here, 4 or 5 minutes at the whiteboard, explaining what midline stabilization is, and was our ability to stay rigid. And then here, this is like a spine. So you got the vertebrae, they're the big rectangles, and then the oval things in the middle were the discs. So I explained, if we were in a neutral spine, this is what it looks like. And the discs act as shock absorbers
in the position of the spine. However, if we were to take away the discs and the discs weren't there, you'd have vertebrae on vertebrae and they'd be doing this. And then it's kind of like, imagine what that would feel like if you had no discs and the spine, the vertebrae just rubbing off each other all the time. You would live in constant pain. So I was explaining, that happens if we lift heavy loads under flexion. So for flexion or extension, we squish the disc in the middle, and I've got it over here, and you see the squish of the disc on this side, which causes it to burst out, and then that's where you get a protruding disc, a herniated disc, a bulging disc, something like that. And then over time, if we continue to do it, the disc will end up disappearing, and then you've got bone on bone. So if I give them that explanation, they're like, I really don't want to be in that position where I damage my disc, I'm on this bone on bone all the time. So now I'm inspiring them to live really well today because of the fear of the damage to the disc and the damage to their long-term health. I also have a herniated disc, L5-S1, so I'm living the experience of this, and it's not because of this, it's because of a fall, but it's the same idea. If I continue to lift in flexion or extension in a deadlift, for instance, at a heavy load, I'll make it worse. And I was just explaining to them the pain that I go through and the periods of not training that I have to endure. Like I'm just off a 3-month break because my back, my hip area, because L5-S1's right down the middle of my lower back hip area. And the frustration that I have to deal with because I can't train for periods of time because of the pain. It just gets too inflamed and I have to let it settle. And then I can start to rebuild, which I'm currently on that process now of rebuilding. So I just encourage people that they don't want to live in my situation, that they want to train consistently all the time and be healthy forever, okay? So midline stabilization is our ability to stay rigid, and I use that in a deadlift day, and it works so well. And it only works, like, I'm sure you say it all the time, brace your midline, brace your core, squeeze your abs, all these types of things, and people don't listen. They hear you, but then in the workout, they just forget about it. Whereas if you go deep on it like this, and you give them the explanation and you get them to do this, and then you explain it all, then it's like, then it hits home, right? So it just adds a deeper layer, gets into the head, and then the movement quality you'll see that day is insane. And it's like the ability to stay rigid is a thing. And it's like, I want you to get strong at being rigid today. There's other days where I want you to flex and extend your spine. Like, let's say gymnastics, for example, in the kip swing, I want you to flex and extend your spine. On a ski erg, I want you to flex your spine. Like, there's days where I want you to flex and extend. Today, I want you to stay rigid. That's what we're building. Now it's a different class, you know what I mean? That's that one. This one here was, like, you've probably all heard of the tripod. So 1, 2, and 3. For me, I don't coach the tripod, I coach this. So I coach the pressure point behind the big toe, pressure point behind the little toe, pressure on the outside of the foot and into the heel. So this is what I coach here. And then if people can lift their arches, that's where they don't want any pressure. Okay. So the tripod for me, I just don't like it because you should also have weight on the outside of your foot. So this is what I would coach about the weight on the foot. And I use this as a label then. I said red marks on the ground. Red marks on the ground. And the whiteboard was there. They could always look back. So what was the red marks? And it was easy for me. It was red marks on the ground. And I was like walking around just making sure everyone had their red marks on the ground for the whole session. Okay. All right. So that's education. Let's get into, I think, a video here. Yes. This is more education about the push jerk.
We have the press here and the push press here. So you see the start position is the exact same. The little red dot here signifies where the barbell is. You see the body is totally straight in both. And then the finish position is also the exact same. So the barbell is overhead, and again the body is in a dead straight position. With the press, just go from one to the other, all upper body. With the push press, we use the dynamic power from the legs and hips to move the barbell up. And then that allows us to drive through the legs and press through the arms. And because of that, we can lift more load. So we transition now into the jerk here. And the start position remains the same as the other two. The finish position remains the same. We use the legs and hips twice. Once in the dip and drive, then once in the catch. So we dip down into the knees and hips here so we can use the quads and glutes, and then we drive up, and as we drive up the bar moves, you see it moves off the shoulder and up towards about the forehead height, and then we have the speed of the legs and hips again to move down into that catch position where then we lock out the arms and the bar is overhead. Because of this, the bar doesn't travel as high, so this is a really important point. So that from the time the bar leaves the shoulders to the time elbows lock out, it's traveled this far. That allows us to lift a heavier load because the bar doesn't have to move as far. Now, if you go back up to the push press or the strict press, the bar starts on the shoulder and then travels this distance, which is a much greater distance. So if the bar has to travel more, we don't move as much load. So you can see that strict press, upper body strength exercise. Push press, we bring in the use of the lower body. We can move more load, but we're still traveling the same distance. And then on the push jerk, we've got dynamic use of the legs and hips twice, power up and speed down, which then reduces the range of motion that the bar has to travel. Therefore, we can lift more load.
All right, so that's a very detailed explanation of how we can lift heavier on a jerk than a push press or a strict press. So if you're coaching a jerk and you want people to go heavy that day and you want to explain, well, the dip and the drive move the bar up, and then you moving yourself down under the bar at speed allows the bar to not travel as high. So you could use it as, I want to get as heavy as possible so that the dip and drive, the bar only moves a certain height, and then it's pushing yourself under the bar at that point, which then allows you to lift heavier because the bar doesn't travel as much. So you can go into detail on any area of that. You could take a little piece of that and build it into your class. You could take the whole thing and use it in your class. If you're coaching a press, push press and strict press all in the one session, this would be perfect for it. And you can explain how your strict press is going to be like 50 kilos. Your push press is going to be like 60, 65 because you get to use the legs. And then your push jerk is going to be like 80, 85 because you get to use the legs twice in the dynamic movement. You move the bar up and then you push yourself down. The bar doesn't have to move as far. And the bar not moving as far is the thing here, right? It's like, can I use my legs to move the bar and push myself under? If the bar doesn't travel as high, well then it's more dynamic, it's quicker, and I can lift heavier. So it's a really good point to throw into a class where you might have these overhead presses or something like that. Obviously a split jerk is very similar to a push jerk. We can generally lift a heavier load on the split jerk because we can catch a little bit lower, and there's also less mobility requirements for a split jerk than there is for a push jerk. So we can get into that detail again, so you can step it on another layer if you wanted. So just give you an idea of how you can be educational with your whiteboard, okay? So it's not just let's draw a picture and tell people this is what we're doing. It's like, give them some detail. Let's get into some detail here, all right? Here's another one.
We got to look at the 4 steps of the pull-up. So you got your arch position into your hollow position, and then from there you push down on the bar, and that'll give you some height where then you can pull your chin in over the bar. Then to link your multiple reps together, you got to do that in reverse. So once you get your chin over the bar, you got to push yourself back into that position here, so then you can fall back down into your hollow, flow back into your arch. Once you get to this arch position, then you're back into the start of the sequence to get your next pull-up. The common fault is like people don't push back here. And what happens is when they get the chin over the bar, they just fall straight down, and then they've got no momentum in the hollow or the arch position, which allows them to string the reps together.
All right, so there's a little bit more detail on how to string reps together on a pull-up. All right, so trying to find the arch, the hollow, the push, the pull, and then doing it in reverse then to get back into the next rep and moving through. All right, so a little bit more education on it again, and then obviously you go practice each stage. All right. Okay, correcting faults. So if you see the whole or the majority of the class doing the same faults, you can then intervene and make a big point of it. All right, so let me just skip on to this.
Hey crew, can everyone come over to the whiteboard for a sec? We want that really strong finish. What we're looking for is to squeeze the quads here, make sure we lock out the knees, squeeze the glutes here to make sure we lock out the hips, and then we squeeze the abs, make sure that we finish in a nice straight back position. That's going to be your strong finish. What we want to avoid is where we drive the hips forward and then lean back. This is going to give us a really arched position in our spine. And this is where we're going to end up in a bit of pain, so we don't want to do this. It's less efficient and less strong. We want to squeeze the quads, the glutes, and the abs at the top and find that strong finish. Hey Christy, find your strong finish. Remember the picture from the whiteboard. Yeah, there's your strong finish. Good man. Thanks, coach.
All right, so you see there, at the start of the video, that was like a representation of a whole class doing the same thing, or a lot of people in the class having that extended spine and top position of the kettlebell swing. Call them all over the whiteboard, show them what you want, give it a label, reference it, and then there you go. They have that position. All right. Okay, so let me just jump back. here. You can use the whiteboard with one or a group of athletes after a class. So if you've watched a class and you've seen this one athlete who just didn't respond to any of your cues, right? You've tried the visual, verbal, and tactile. In the cues during a class, visual, verbal, tactile, there's no read right there, right? So you got the visual of doing like a bit of movement. You got the tactile about getting them touched, bit of kinesthetic, and you've got the verbal just using your words. But where is the read right? It's very difficult to do in the middle of a class, right? In the middle of a workout. So at the end of the workout, it's like, here, come here. Come over to the whiteboard. Here, look, this is what you were doing. This is what you're missing. And then you can talk them through it visually. And they're like, now I get it. All right, so don't be afraid to spot it in the middle of a class. And just because the class is over, it means that it's gone. It's like, no, I'm going to nail this in the head now so that when it comes to the next class, I can just say, remember that whiteboard picture I showed you 3 weeks ago? And they're like, no, not really. And I was like, remember, I was like, I had this, and just start a quick one again. It's like, yeah, that's what I was looking for. Remember? Oh, yeah, it made sense. Now they can do it again today. All right. Use it like a contrast and demo to help athletes see what they're doing wrong. Balance point from varied teaching. So if you remember back to the varied teaching lesson 2, talked about the varied teaching, and I showed you the demo of the person doing a handstand and talked about the balance point. So that's like a contrast and demo, telling them where to get the handstand. So if you don't remember that, go back to lesson 2, varied teaching, and you can find that one. Here then in this picture, you see the guy doing the double unders. It's like their feet are on the ground and the rope is hitting his feet. So he's sad. And then the other guy is happy because his feet are off the floor and the rope is under his feet. And it's just getting that visual representation of, oh, when my feet are in the air, that's when I spin the rope. Because you could say it a million times and people still don't understand it. You can demo it, still don't understand it. What about a simple little picture like this? Like it takes 10 seconds. Done. And it's like, here, look at this. Yeah, feet on the ground, hitting the rope, sad. Feet in the air, rope under the feet, happy. Done. And then they see the contrast and it just helps them understand it better. All right, so don't underestimate the use of your whiteboard when it comes to correcting faults. All right, we've already done that. All right, workout intensity mind system. This is my favorite. This is the one that I use the most, I would say, because I use it as inspiration and motivation before a workout. I love motivational speeches. I love getting people riled up just before a workout. And I find that using a whiteboard with a graph or a bit of a thing just lands a bit better and then helps them understand what the intensity is, and then they can go and get it, right? So use graphs to show what the intensity of the workout should look like. Show effort relative to intensity. Show effort relative to intensity. I think of a video. Yes, let's watch that.
0 to 10 minutes. This is your workout length. And this here is the speed at which you work. Generally, what we start at 100% speed, and then as the workout goes on, a little bit slower as time goes on. All right. Today, what we're looking for is that we work at about 70% from start to finish. So that should look like this. Now, the big thing here is that your effort level has to change in order to hold 70%. So when you start your workout, this red one is your effort, and your effort is going to be quite low. And let's say it's about 30%, and it's 30% to hold 70% speed. But as the workout goes on, you have to work harder to hold 70%. And then by the end of the workout, your effort level is at 100% to hold 70% pace. Today in the workout, what I want you to do is think about this. Start easy. It should be easy at the start. And as you go on for the workout, it's going to get harder and harder and harder. And when it gets really difficult, that's when you know you got to dig a little bit deeper to hold that 70% pace all the way through the workout.
Okay, the sound was a little bit off there on that video, but I think you get the idea. I think the big thing on this is that as I'm explaining it, you can get a little bit lost in the weeds. And then you notice at the very end, I do a little bit of a recap thing of like, okay, for into today's workout, it's like, okay, well, what's the point today? Today, I want you to hold 70% pace. At the beginning, that's going to feel easy. That's what it's going to feel like. It's going to feel easy. I don't want you to start 100% because we all know we can, but we're going to crash and burn like the blue line. So it's start at 70% where it should feel easy. And then as the workout goes on, it's going to start to feel harder to hold the exact same pace. Now, the machines are really, really good for this because if you tell somebody to hold, let's say a 150 pace or something like that on a rower, and it's like, it's going to feel easy at the start. But by the end of the workout, it's going to be really, really difficult and you got to be working harder to find it. So the effort line is the red. The effort is low at the start, high at the end to maintain the same pace all the way across. So it just gives them that physical representation on the graph, on a whiteboard of what you want with the verbal description. And then when they're in the workout, they start to feel it kinesthetic. And it's like, oh, this is what he was talking about. Now this is where I got to work harder. And it allows them to then make that decision to work harder at that point. And you're inspiring them to make that decision for themselves. And then obviously you can go over and encourage and then repeat what you've already said. It's like, come on, and this is where you have to start working a little bit harder. Don't let your pace drop, whatever it might be. Okay, so that's showing effort relative to intensity. Show their mindset. Show how their mind should work and positive mindset, right? So I'm going to explain these two graphs here on the board, right? So this one I did quite recently. It was 500 meter sprints, 500 meter max effort row, right? So if you imagine a 500 meter max effort row, there's nobody in the world that wants to do that 5 times. Like, once is enough. Once is always enough for a 500 meter row. But if you're doing it 5 times, then we need to talk about mindset, because people are going to check out after the first one. Because you do the first one, if you've done it before, you know what a 500 meter row feels like at max effort. There's no way you want to get back off the ground, put yourself back in a rower and go again. So that's what this graph was for, right? So this is what makes your classes really interesting, really engaging and different for people, is that, like, talking about this aspect, talking about this type of stuff. Nobody else talks about this stuff. Everyone just looks at the workout and says, okay, go do the workout, 500 meter max effort, go have fun, check out, die, whatever you want, cool. Whereas if you talked about this stuff, then it changes it. It really changes it, right? So let me explain. So if you've got 500 meter rows, on average, you're talking 2 minutes per row. That's 10 minutes work, right? Over a 40-minute period or whatever it might be on the day, whatever rest period you're going to give, right? So on the bottom line, I've got 0 to 10 again. So that's the 10 minutes of rowing is all I'm counting for. I'm not counting for the rest here, right? And if you've done a 500 meter row, you know that because you're going pretty damn hard, that first minute feels fine. And after the first minute, that's when it gets really, really difficult, all right? And it's like, oh my God, my legs are burning, my lungs are burning, I can hardly breathe, and I still have to keep going. I'm not there yet. Like, it's like 300 meter mark, 350 meters, like, oh my God, I'm dying, I can't do any more, all right? So you see from 0 to 1 here, let me get the cursor up. 0 to 1 here, that's the first minute of your first row. It's very physical because you're hard, you're driving, you're fresh, you've got legs, you've got lungs, you've got everything, and you're pushing really, really hard. At that point, the workout is only 10% mental. So you see 90 line here to 100. It's 10% mental because you don't really need much mental. It's just like, yeah, let's go fucking hard. Let's go, 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 go. After that first minute is when it flips. And all of a sudden, now it's all about the mental capacity in your head of motivating yourself to keep going. It's like, after that minute, it switches. You've got to push yourself. You've got to say, keep going, keep going, keep going. I need you to keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing. And at that point, it's only 10% physical then. Because your body wants to stop, but your mind is saying, no, keep going. And then once you've done your first row, imagine it was 2 minutes here, to get back on the next row, it's all mental. Like, your body's not ready. You don't want to do it again. You're like, there's no fucking way I can find that same intensity. But you got to convince yourself that you can. So today in this workout, 5x500 meter max effort, I told them it was more mental training than physical training. And it was like, train yourself, train your brain to just say, let's do it, let's do it, let's do it. And like, the response I got that day from my athletes was incredible. They all just pushed so bloody hard. Yeah, of course their times dropped because they fatigue, but they kept pushing. And it's so easy to check out on them days. It's so easy just to go, cool, I've worked really hard, I can't do it anymore, now I'm just going to cruise through my 500s. But it wasn't. The point of the workout was max effort, 500 meter row, 5 times, which is cruel. But if I didn't explain it with this graph, they all would have checked out after round 2. But they didn't. They pushed all the way through to the very, very end, and it was brutal, absolutely brutal. Okay, so just another aspect on how you can use it for workout mindset, okay? All right, so this was intensity and stimulus of the workout. So this last graph, right? So I'm going to explain how I explained this. So it was an interval day, and it was a high intensity interval training, right? That's exactly what I wanted. Now, I said to them, if we had, I can't remember exactly the workout, but let's say it was 5 rounds, right? And it was 5 rounds of a specific amount of work. And I said, if we didn't have the rest in between, this straight line would be the intensity. It's like, I want you to start easy and continue on at a consistent, solid pace all the way through. And that's a very different workout than what we got today. All right. Other days we have the interval workout where we work really, really hard. We start to die off. So we work really hard. We start to die off, and then we're in our rest period. And then we start to work out again. We ramp it up. We start to die off, and then we got our rest period, and we ramp it up and we start to die off. That's not what I want today. So what I want today is that your intensity stays the exact same for the whole working period. Like, I can't remember what it was, but I remember it was a very, very short interval. It was like 1 minute or something of hard work. And it was like, all right, I want you red hot for that full minute. And then I want you to rest for your 30 seconds. And then you're getting red hot for 1 minute. And then you're resting for 30 seconds. And you're red hot for 1 minute. And I don't want you to die off the pace. I need you to find the right stimulus. I need you to find the right weight. I need you to find the right level of gymnastics, whatever it might be on that day, to make sure that you do not slow down. If your barbell is too heavy, you're not going to pick it up. If your gymnastic skills are too hard, you're going to come off the bar. So pick the level that you know you can do really, really well all the time, no fail, and push it as hard as possible. It's all about intensity today. It's not about the barbell. It's not about the skill. It's about moving really, really fast when you're working. Now that's a different speech, and now they're ready to go. It's like, okay, and then you give them time to adjust whatever they need to do. This might happen before they build to workout weight, or before, like 5 or 10 minutes before the workout actually starts. And then it's a reminder of before. All right, remember, it's red hot today, red hot. We got to go, go, go. And they've already set themselves up for it. They already know mentally that's what they're going to do. They're going to chase the stimulus, the intensity of the workout. Bang, you're in. All right. So different ways to use your whiteboard, workout, intensity, mindset, and stimulus.
0.
I've already done that. Here's another one.
Power equals energy over time. In today's workout, we're trying to develop more power. So here's how we do it. We're going to say that energy is our load. T is still time. So if we lift 100 kilos and it takes us 2 seconds to do the rep, that's 100 divided by 2, which is 50 kilograms per second. If we lift heavier at 120 kg, but it takes us 3 seconds to do the rep, now it's 40 kilos per second, which is less powerful than 50 kilos per second. So we're actually developing less power by lifting heavier because it's forcing us to move slower. On the other side of it, if you went 70 kg and it took you 1 second, that's 70 kgs per second. Now you're going to develop more power. So what we want to do is choose the heaviest weight that we can move the quickest, but through the whole workout. So for all 50 reps, can you stay fast and lift heavy?
All right, so just another way to explain the stimulus on the whiteboard. So we could easily just said that, but I don't think it means as much until you see it written down. Like if I took away the whiteboard and said the exact same thing, like go back, rewind this, press play and put your hand over the screen and just listen. And it's not going to be as powerful as it is when you see it. All right, so it just allows people to just chase down their correct stimulus to the workout because you've told them and you've shown them exactly what you're looking for. All right, quotes. So as I mentioned, quotes are not my favorite thing. I'm not big on quotes, but I do like some, and these are some that I use a lot. All right, so use quotes from books, from CrossFit, from anything you like, really. So anything you think is relevant. Effort is a choice. So that's one from Training Think Tank that I use a lot for motivating people on the day where it's like they could easily just back off. Like that 5x500 meter row, like I could have went with effort as a choice as opposed to the mental physical thing. And I was like, make the choice to work hard. Don't make the choice to go easy, you know. Mechanics, consistency, intensity. I use this all the time. Like my classes know what mechanics, consistency, intensity is because I mentioned this. Like I wouldn't say once a week, but I mention it quite a lot. So it's like we got to get the mechanics right, and then the intensity shouldn't change the mechanics. And that's the way I use it a lot. Is the intensity should not change the mechanics. Intensity equals results. So that's straight from CrossFit level 1. It's like, all right, we got to get results. We got to have intensity. So we got to find intensity today and then get comfortable with the uncomfortable. This is one of my favorites. And I think it's like a CrossFit thing again. It's like, just get used to being and feeling awful. Like push hard, and when it's getting really hard, keep pushing. Get comfortable there and just keep going. All right. So general quotes that I use, you can write them on the whiteboard and you can reference them. Okay. Anything else that you want to use as well. So you might just pull a quote, I don't know, of anything and relate it to the workout. And in retrospect or in reality, it's not anything got to do with CrossFit, but you can link it. And that's what's important because some people love them. People love quotes. So you got a coach for everybody. Okay, labels, focus points. So send home the label or focus point. We've talked about labels and focus points recently, so I'm just going to get straight into these videos.
Let's look at rowing. Phase 1, we use the legs. So we drive the legs hard and we keep the shoulders in front of the hips. Phase 2, the hip angle changes from this to this and the shoulders go from in front to behind. Phase 3, we use the arms by pulling the handle to the bottom of the chest. This is going to be your 3-phase power. We get 3-phase power by doing it in this sequence, phase 1 followed by phase 2, followed by phase 3, but also trying to even the power across all 3 phases.
All right, so what I would do then is I'd talk about this and then I'd get them on a rower and I'd cover phase 1 first. So I'd get them to do like full rowing strokes. I wouldn't worry about just cutting the row into the different phases, but I'd focus on the phase. So like, okay, we're all going to row. Now, when your legs are straight, I want you to make sure your shoulders are in front of your hips. But you're going to row normally. And it's just getting to slow down, find that position. Deadly. Okay, now, once your legs are straightened, that's when you lean back. So your shoulders are in front as the legs straighten. And then as they hit that straighten point, then you lean back. Perfect. All right. Now, then I want you to find the last sequence of keeping the arms long until you start to lean back. So legs, shoulders are in front, then lean back and pull to finish. Perfect. That's your 3-phase power. We're looking for that 3-phase power today. There's your label, 3-phase power. And it's like even power across the whole thing. I don't want a big hard leg drive or a big hard pull. I want it even across the 3 phases. 3-phase power. And you've got your label. All right, here's another one.
First thing we're going to practice is hips back. Second thing is elbows straight. And the third thing is feet flat. We're going to combine these 3 things and call it one thing, stable catch.
All right, there you go. So you don't get confused by my arm position there. I have terrible overhead mobility, but that was supposed to be a push jerk. All right, so you remember from the very start of this, we had the push jerk, we top of the torso angle, and we got that torso tipped. So another way to look at it is here with the 3 positions of hips back, elbows straight, feet flat, and that gives us our label of stable catch. All right, so you can write that on the whiteboard, and you can what you could do is you could write this up at the start and say these are 3 things we're going to cover and it's going to be your stable catch. Or you can coach the 3 things layer by layer, so hips back, and then you could remind them, okay, so just to remind you, hips back, elbows straight, feet flat. That's your stable catch. That's what we're looking for today. All I'm looking for today is that your hips go back, your elbows are straight, and your feet are flat. In the catch, it's the stable position. So stable catch, stable catch, stable catch. And then you're going into your push jerk lesson, stable catch, stable catch, stable catch. And then if you need to get into the specifics of each one, it's like, all right, stable catch, you need to just straighten your elbows quicker. Stable catch, make sure your feet are flat when you land on the bar, with the bar overhead. And it's like just these little things. It's going to have your label. It's going to have your focus point, and you can write it on the board just to add a little bit of emphasis. All right. And you can also write it bigger. You can write it fancier. Anything you want. This is just nice and simple for people to understand. All right. Scaling options. This is the other one I was mentioned that we should have on the whiteboard pretty much at all times, mainly for gymnastics movements, but there are other movements that you can do that you can add it in there. So this is probably most relevant, for gymnastics. Scaling options should be vary depending on the workout or focus. So I have 2 examples of toes to bar here, and the scaling options are different, and you can choose the scaling options depending on the stimulus of the workout, right? So it depends where it is, depends what way you want to coach that day. You can change the scaling options just to make it more interesting for people, because they're doing, like, imagine somebody who can't do pull-ups and do ring rows every single time there's pull-ups on the workout, kipping or strict. They are always doing ring rows. That's going to get boring as hell, and they're also not going to progress as quick. So varying the stimulus by varying the movement pattern, by changing the angle. Instead of a ring row, go for a barbell inverted row. Instead of a barbell inverted row, go for a banded pull-up or a jumping pull-up if the intensity is high, go for a jumping pull-up. So it's like varying it up. On this day, we've got 4 options. Option 1 for the toes to bar is kip swing. Option 2 is straight leg raise. Option 3 is close to the bar. And option 4 is toes to bar. And that's what this diagram is, right? So I actually labeled this big moon. All right, so it looks like a bit of a moon. All right, and that's what I wanted them to do. My big focus was keeping their legs straight throughout the whole thing. So I drew the arch position first. This black line is the arch position. All right, and this was the arch that we're looking for, that perfect straight leg. The thing that we want to avoid that people do all the time is this red line here, which they bend the knee and kick the heel back. All right, then I was like, we want to keep a big moon in the toes to bar today. And the big moon is legs are straight all the way through, all the way through, all the way through. They come over the top and then they come to hit your bar. This is going to be your toes to bar today. That's the perfect position that we're looking for. All right. What we want to avoid is the knee bend version, which is this red line. So if you imagine this person's doing toes to bar, it's going to go here, bang, they go around, and then all of a sudden their toes come in and hit the bar. All right. So it just shows you the 2 different positions. Like, this does not look like a moon, this red one. And I definitely don't want to see that. What I want to see is, and what we want to improve is this big moon here. So keeping your legs straight in the arch, keeping your legs straight through the hollow, and as they raise up through. All right, your scaling options today. This line here is the kip swing. So do the kip swing, just keep your legs straight. If you can do that one well, straight leg raise, about hip height, we're going to work through this range, keeping the legs straight. If you can't do that, or if you can do that, then you can progress to close to the bar. So it's in between leg raise and toes to the bar. So getting the feet close to the bar, and you keep your legs straight all the time. And if you can do that, then you go toes to the bar. And if you can do toes to bar, perfect. If you're doing toes to bar and you start to lose it, and you start to look like the red line here, and it's not a big moon anymore, then regress back down to close to bars. Same if you're on this close to bars and you start to change, regress backwards. So always choose the level that you can maintain the big moon. That's what we're looking for. Big moon is the thing today. There you go. And then I actually went over and gave a visual demo as well here. So I went and gave a silent demo of the two versions so they could see it in real life of what it actually looks like. And they're like, oh yeah. And then the movement quality is so good. The movement quality is so good in class then once you've done that. All right, so that was this variation there, and this is how I used it on the whiteboard. Other things you can go kip swing, knee raise, single leg, toes to bar, toes to bar. So it's just another variation of scaling options for toes to bar because it's different. All right. Now I don't have a whiteboard for that, but I'm just talking about scaling options. Okay. So just writing scaling options on the board, and then you can give a drawing if it helps. All right. So what stood out for you the most in today's session? Okay. So posted the Facebook comments, and I can't wait to see answers to your 3 questions today. So I'll remind you of the 3 questions. Question 1 was, which whiteboard thing of these 7 have you never used before? And then have you used your whiteboard for anything else that's not mentioned? And then what stood out for you? So I want to see the comments in Facebook. Them 3 answers. That's part of your homework today. So answer 3 questions from this webinar in the comments of this video on Facebook. So click into the video, click on the comment section of the video, and stick your 3 answers in there. So I'd love to see it. Then I want you to use your whiteboard for each of the 7 ways explained in this webinar. Simple. Well, not simple. But I don't want you to just rob my ideas, right? You can. Here's one thing. If you're gonna rob something on someone, make it better. Don't just rob it and copy it word for word or symbol for symbol. I'm gonna take it and I'm gonna add to it and make it better than what you showed me. All right. So that's one thing that I want you to try and take away forever in your whole life is if you're gonna rob something, make it better. Don't just rob it and use it exactly the same. All right. Especially if you're coaching a class and you're robbing something from the morning coach, and then one of the days, one of the morning people is in the class in the evening, like, oh, well, I've already heard this from my coach. If you make it a little bit better than the morning coach, then they're going to be like, oh, well, he robbed this. Oh, wait, hang on. That's different. That's new. And they've sparked an interest, like, oh, this guy's better. Interesting. You know, so, like, that's what we do, right? We want to be the best coach. We got to be better than everybody else, okay? So, rob it, make it better. So use your whiteboard for each of the 7 ways explained in the webinar. That's your homework, right? You got to do it. Now, I don't expect you to do it over the next 7 coaching sessions. If you do, grand. But remember I said don't use your whiteboard every day. But if you're using a whiteboard for something different every day, it can be still interesting. But just be careful that you're not like, all right, let's go over to the whiteboard. And everyone's just like, oh. So pay attention to the body language in your class. Are people engaged or already bored of going to the whiteboard? If you've used your whiteboard 3 or 4 days in a row, and on the 4th day you see the body language changing, don't use it the next day. Don't use the day after that and bring it back in another day after that, right? So you don't have like a time cap on this, right? But I do want you to use your whiteboard in 7 different ways. Like warm up is easy. You can do that anyway. And then you got scaling options. So obviously the next day, gymnastics movement or something that you think you need to have different scaling options for on the whiteboard, use it then, all right? But then the other few, I want you to start thinking about where you can start implementing them into your classes, okay? Now, the accountability side of it is you're going to post your answers to 3 questions on Facebook. So that's the first thing. I want you to see them answers straight in as soon as you've watched this video. The second thing is I want you to take a picture and tag me in all 7 whiteboard pictures on your Instagram stories. You're going to tag @CoachTheCoach, and then you're going to put in what is it. So, for example, Coach the Coach workout intensity. And you're just going to put the picture on Instagram. All right, so I know you're doing it. But then you're also going to post that same picture in the comment section on Facebook of this video so that we have a big list of everybody's whiteboards. Imagine we had 20 coaches who all had 7 different variations of whiteboards. That's 2 7s. That's 140 examples that we have to use and share. All right, you've put up 7, but you've got 133 back. And that's what we want. That's what we need, is that we're getting different ideas. Like, you've probably never seen all the stuff that I've just put in this presentation. Now you've all got that information. All right. So if you got that multiplied by 20, now you've got 140 different things that we can use our whiteboards for. And now we're fucking killing it. We're absolutely nailing it. We're better than everybody. We're using our whiteboards better than everybody in the world, right? So that's what we need it for. That's the power of it. So I want you to tag me so I know you're doing it. Take a picture of your whiteboard, tag me, stick it on your stories. It's gone in 24 hours. Don't stress. You don't need to put it on your grid. You don't need to do videos. You don't need to talk. You don't need to do anything. Just take a photograph. I will know what it is. And that's all that's important. And then you just put down in the comments, just tag me at Coach the Coach and Workout Intensity, or at Coach the Coach Workout Mindset, at Coach the Coach Scaling, at Coach the Coach Education, whatever it is. Just put it in the caption, or put it in on the story. All right, and then make sure you put it in the Facebook for everybody to see, and then we can reference it back. And it's always going to be on this video so that we can have a look. We can rewatch the video and see all the stuff. All right, that's your homework. Oh, this is a good one. I love the whiteboard. It adds so much to your class. You can add so much detail, and it can make your classes so much more engaging, more interesting, and develop better results. You will be amazed the difference using the whiteboard can be to the quality of movement in your class. So have fun with it. Enjoy it. Dig deep into your brain and use it the best way you possibly can. If you're having any difficulties, if you have an idea and you're I'm not really sure how to implement this idea, reach out to me. That's what I'm here for. You're not completely on your own now. It's all right, well, I have this idea, not really sure how I can use the whiteboard for. Can you help me? Perfect. Yes, I can. Come on. Let me help you. All right. So you're not all on your own on this one as well. But be as creative as you can. And then let us know how it goes as well. All right. Peace out.